Right. And that's why it's important to do gratitude practices.
There you go.
Honestly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And also,
that's a great point. Great point. I should
step back and I just hate that fucking word, but like,
I know you do.
But just
2 words.
think about, we signed up for this.
Yeah.
Unless you didn't and they poked a hole in the condom. But like in our case, in most people's cases, this was this was a choice. Okay. So let's record the intro now.
So what is Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads. We love our kids. But then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey. Hey. Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take.
All right, Matt, we are back live via satellite with a topic coming straight to you from the desk of Matt Naylor. It's something about how parenting changes. I can't wait to get into this. Somehow I feel like we're going to end about our anger. Go ahead,
It's a common theme.
Why don't you kick us off here? How do you want to get into this?
Well, yeah, so this is something, you know how that thing will happen sometimes where you have a thought and then suddenly you're kind of seeing it everywhere?
Yeah, like when you hurt your elbow and then it's like, wow, my elbow just hits everything.
Yeah. Or like, oh man, I've been thinking a lot about whatever, meditation. And then suddenly everybody you talk to is like, I just started meditating. There's like some kind of collective unconscious.
And then somehow you feel like Facebook and Instagram are like listening to you.
Yeah.
But really it's just the universe.
And maybe they're listening to you. But this has been the case for me recently with thinking about, really trying to think specifically about the way in which becoming a parent changes you as an individual. So I did a bunch of digging. There's interesting research out there. There's some interesting neuroscience that I want to get into, some stuff about identity. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to ask you, just from your own first person experience, like what are the biggest ways you feel like you have changed as a human being since you had kids?
I'd say the biggest thing is, just the fact that there's somebody who is, I hold as kind of more important than me, even though we talked about it on a couple episodes ago. I'm the most important person in the world. I put myself first, but I care more about something and love something more than I ever thought I could.
Yeah.
And I really think about someone else's well-being all the time. So like how I used to kind of do this self-optimization thing all the time. We're like, oh, how am I doing? How's life going? What can I do to improve? This like sort of internal growth mindset. Now I do that for a little army of hellions. Like, how are they doing? How's their life going?
Yeah.
And so I care about them a lot. And also just like, I used to be this is a weird analogy. I feel like I've maybe said this before, maybe not. Maybe it's just an internal thought that I've never shared ever. But I remember when I was a kid, I used to think like, why the hell do adults just get to like do whatever the fuck they want? Like, I want to have a sleepover with my friend. They're like, well, maybe next week. And I was just like, oh, like next week? What the hell? And I remember I watched Home Alone and Harry and Marv are casing the joint, looking at the McAllister's house, and they drive by looking at things to do. And they look and they're like, hey, that house, let's come back tonight. And I was like, oh my God, those guys like just decided to rob that house and they're going to go rob it that same night. Lucky. So in my 20s and, in my teens, like I used to do that. Like if I had an idea, hey, let's do this. Like, okay, cool. And then we just do it. And that was something that I always did. And in college, hey, I have this idea. Oh, I've never done Frisbee golf before. Let's go to Play It Again Sports. Let's buy like 3 Frisbees right now. Yeah, and let's do it tonight. That has changed in my adulting years. I've noticed this recently. Like if I have something where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I might not do it for like 3 weeks. And I think about it every day.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing the kids.
That's really funny. Yeah. It's such like your kids are like, yeah, you just get to do whatever you want. It's like, baby, like I want to go play golf. I haven't played golf in like 2 years. I mean, certainly that thing of the hard shove out of the center of the universe has been a big thing. I'd like to think that there's been some like decrease along with that. There's been some decrease in narcissism where it's no longer like I gotta like put my stamp on the world or I'm not doing anything. Now it's much more like I just want a nice life for myself and my family. I want to do something I care about, but I no longer have the Messiah complex, I think, that I did.
Oh, I totally have that. I mean, it's the same thing where it's like, even if you get really stressed out, I can always just think and do the gratitude practice of like, you know, how lucky am I? I made these kids. Mm-hmm. They're alive. They're healthy. I mean, knock on wood, I could die right now. And like, I fucking did it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to die, but I'm just saying, like, before it's like, oh, I'm only 20. I haven't created yet. I haven't left my mark. I got to do something.
That's right. Yeah. And I do think some of that stress for a lot of people, and you've been very successful, so you have a little bit less of this. Some of that stress transports over, like, I got to make sure I continue to provide for my family, which is, I don't know, that talk about a thing that's like in the air, like just the feeling of instability around the macroeconomic picture, I think has a lot of people thinking about money in a way that's like pretty turned up. But yeah, it's just a different bar than it used to be, where it's like, if I don't win an Oscar for best director, I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. Now it's mostly like, I just want to stay in my house, put food on the table, and have enough time with my kids, work with people I like.
I love how your accent becomes more Texan when you say that.
Oh, really?
It's like, I need to be an amazing director. Oh, just like keep stay in my house. Be a simple man.
Yeah,
simple man.
It is funny, like when I'm in my backyard working on stuff, like my kids will come out and suddenly I'm talking like my dad. You know, it just gets such a redneck thing going. I think what we're talking about now, and maybe this is a good place to start. And by the way, there's a ton of reading and research, et cetera, on the ways that it impacts your marriage. But I think that's a whole huge topic. So I think we're just going to leave that one out of this episode, because obviously your marriage changes dramatically. This is more kind of how you change internally, I think. One of the things that I came across that really resonated with me is this idea that, and we've talked about it before, is your heroic phase. When you're a young man, you kind of, I remember like fancying myself. I don't really like that phrase. Well, you fancy yourself a certain way. You know what I mean?
I guess if you're
fancy, you're fancy. I am fancy.
Fancy
Max.
yourself? I mean, that's like an 1800s word. That's like,
no, people still say that, bro. Like, oh, he kind of fancies himself an artist. You know what I mean?
No.
You don't know what I mean? All right. Well,
no, that's like out of like a period piece, like watching, Deadwood in the late 90s, like,
all right.
Would you fancy another cocktail, sir?
Yeah, but also people say it now. But anyways, so, but like I think a lot of us think of ourselves, like a big part of my identity was that like I was always traveling and I was doing exciting things. And sometimes we'd go film in places that were kind of dangerous, and that was cool. Mm-hmm. And my life had a lot of variation to it. And if there was a new restaurant, I wanted to try it. And there's a little bit of like an adventurer thing that, at least for me, was a central part of my identity. And
same. I think that's like a 20-year-old thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like, you're kind of pretending to be an adult. It's like very fun when you do things that remind you of a movie or being an adult or your parents. You're like, oh, look at me.
Yeah,
I'm doing all these cool things.
I'm doing cool stuff. And like, I want to go like paragliding, or like, you kind of want to like test danger a little bit. And that is something that I think, it's funny that is something that I think a lot of dads struggle with, is that impulse for me has not fully gone away, but the calculus has changed so dramatically. I mean, one, in terms of like how much danger I'm willing to put myself in, that has gone way down, because I can't die like I used to.
Right.
It would have been not great, but okay if I had died for it. Now I really shouldn't be dying for stupid reasons. Yeah. And then also just I don't want to be away from home as much. I like think harder about when I travel away from my family. But I think that's a hard thing for men to shift without somehow feeling like they've lost some of their virility, or what made them, to use your phrase, a strong boy. Mm-hmm. Have you felt that at all?
Yeah, but I still find it. I do the thing where I don't want to die. Like I have a really good friend who's doing a 50th birthday party, like a heli trip. I just like don't really love helicopters. So I'm not not gonna do the helicopter thing probably, but I'll go, and I'll maybe ski, but maybe not do the heli ski thing. It's such a low probability of dying, but just, I don't know. It's one of those things that like, I just made a decision, like I'm probably not going to get in a helicopter. So, and that, I don't know if that's rational or not, but heli skiing, there's avalanche deaths and stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have the death thing for sure, but I have not resigned myself to like, I guess now that I am happy about the kids, I will just die now. And, watch sports on the weekends and, balloon in weight and just die. I still want to grow emotionally, mentally, physically. Like I am now, I have a thing where I'm always kind of learning a new thing. Like right now I'm big into number theory. I know if this is your last time listening, I'm sorry that I do this, but like I like math, and number theory is like the study of pretty much integers, like whole numbers, like how prime numbers interact with each other. I find that really interesting. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. I've never learned that. So I'm reading books about it. I'm doing some math problems on the side. Like that's fun for me. I'm not dead yet. I know that's not like what you're saying about strong boys, but like,
I guess I mean more like adventure, because I feel that growth and learning thing too. Actually, recently in the last couple of years, the desire to learn new stuff has come back in a really strong way, and that's been very fun.
But I have it for adventure too. Like, for example, like last year, I asked a bunch of guys in town, hey, who wants to climb, a couple thousand feet of vertical with tents on our backpack, on our bike, bike up over the mountains, find a high alpine lake and sleep at 10,000 feet. And then we'll come back in time for work. Like all these guys are like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Like I still like doing things like that. There's like death rate very low, not going to die, but it's a hard thing that I've never done. Like I've never been fly fishing. I found a guide service and a good, a guide in Park City named, Wes Shirey. And I was like, hey, you're an amazing mountain biker. You're an amazing fly fisherman. Would you want to put that together? And we bike up 2,000 feet and then we fish at a high alpine lake. And then, could we do something like that? He's like, yeah. So like, there are still adventures left for us that don't involve hang gliding. And that are still scary.
Yeah. So I kind of have three thoughts about that. One is I do think we just got to acknowledge that you're in a unique position to engage that because of where you live and the amount of control you have over your time. Yeah. I think that there are just many dads that live in the middle of a city and work hours with a lack of flexibility such that like they just can't get there that often. That said, like, I do think I don't think that desire just dies just because you become a dad to like do something physically hard and to go on an adventure. And there are ways to engage that. And I think you have to, or I do think some piece of yourself goes away.
And what I'd say is this thing about me where I am this kind of manic new thing type of guy, me, not to toot my own horn here, but like, do you think that where I am affects that at all? Like, do you think if I lived in Chicago, I think
if you lived in Chicago and worked a 50-hour week for like a shitty boss, you would do it less.
Less, for sure.
Yeah, but that's all I'm saying.
Here's the thing. What about rock climbing? That can be done in a city. Like, I think that a lot of times it's the thing where we put a story on ourselves. Here's who I am. I am this person. I've always wanted to learn the guitar, but I never have. Like, I've always wanted to rock climb. I've always wanted to go kayaking. Like, there are class whatever rapids probably within 2 hours of every person listening.
Yeah.
Like there's a rock climbing gym probably under an hour away. Like there are things we can still do that, I don't know, tickle that like, oh, I'm doing something new that is hard that I didn't think I could do. But again, it takes putting yourself first and also not feeling silly. Like telling your friends, hey, so what are you doing? Yeah, I'm going to go learn to rock climb. Oh, how old are you? 43. What do you mean you're going to learn to rock climb? I want to start rock climbing. Like, if you,
Yeah.
like, why am I saying it like that? If it was like, have you guys ever tried rock climbing before? No, just like one time at a carnival.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
look like
yeah.
a fucking idiot. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm actually going to go and just start
And just try to do
doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, this episode is brought to you by the Milkless Patreon. If you want to keep listening, it's only going to cost $79.99 per month. We're going entirely offline, so you can no longer listen unless you pay $79.99 per month. Just kidding. It's fucking free. We're actually losing money on the episodes, but we love doing it for you. All we want is for you to tell a friend. Think about that one friend who listens to podcasts. They told you about serial podcasts. They told you about, and it's like, tell them about one.
Yeah.
And it's Milkless.
Just return the favor. The $79.99 does get you feet pics from Max. So if you're into that. You don't have that, like, a lot of people have a worry of feeling foolish when they start a new thing that keeps them from starting new things. And probably that worry gets like more and more ossified the older you get. But you've never suffered from that. It's true. A lot of this is your temperament. What I want to acknowledge on the other end of the scales, because I think I do this kind of stuff. I make a point to frequently like put everybody to bed and then go do something that I haven't done before, or like go meet a friend at a place that I haven't been, or sometimes I'll go on night hikes, which is just kind of like interesting and spooky, and I'll go somewhere I haven't been before. The logistics of my life are so dramatically different than they were in my 20s that it is a difference in scale and frequency that amounts to a totally different life, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
There is, I always want to balance between saying like, yeah, you can't just let these parts of yourself die. You can't let go of these things. These things are critical to an identity that is kind of this like young, heroic, strong guy that you never want to totally leave behind. But I found over and over, and that I have found very personally to be true as I was reading about this stuff, is one of the major sources of unhappiness in new parents is waiting around for things to go back to the way they used to be. Because that ain't coming.
Totally. Which is why in your 20s, prior to kids, like, adventure finds you. There's a lot of adventure going on. You got a big friend group in your city. There's things happening. You're going to the brewery. You're doing, hey, I'm going to go try kayaking. I'll try that shit. Like, it just happens. And you just kind of get a lot of times invited to things, or I don't know. There's more opportunities. For the planets to align when you are a parent, where you happen to have a free Sunday and someone happens to invite you to things, it just doesn't fucking happen anymore.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, our time window has shrunk immensely. So if we're not proactive in having the list of things we want to achieve and do, then we will never do them because we're too tired. It's being intentional about, like, what are the things I want to do before my body turns into a sack of bones?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've always wanted to learn tennis, or like, I've always wanted to, build a fucking model airplane. I don't know, whatever it is, it's just not going to happen for you, brah.
Yeah. You kind of got
mean?
to, you got to make it, you got to will it into being. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I
hold
think,
on. Have you ever rock climbed?
yeah. I mean, I go to like rock climbing gyms a lot. I've not like rock climbed, and I've bouldered a lot, but I've not like done a
good.
vertical face out in the wild.
No, same. But I feel like you'd be like, I picture you like a bouldering bro.
Yeah. I like bouldering a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That beard. Anyway, but like, that's good. You know what I mean? Like, because how do you know? What if you loved rock climbing?
Yeah.
Put some music in, start rock climbing, It's not for everybody. There's some weird dudes, weird cats who climb rock, but you might be one of those weird cats.
Yeah, you might be one of those weird cats. Yeah. But yeah, so I think, it's this weird, like, I mean, I think a lot of times we talk about trying to hold two things at the same time that feel kind of contradictory. And it's like, on the one hand, do not wait around expecting life to go back to the way it was. But on the other hand, for me, it has been really important to both accept that I am in this different phase of my life and I'm not in this heroic phase anymore where that's such a driver of my identity. But also, when I let that stuff totally go, I just kind of feel like gray. And I become a worse dad too, because in some strange way, I feel less like a man. Who's like
totally,
capable
and you resent the
for my
kids.
family.
And I thought you were going to bring some studies that round us out as we're diving in here. I found one that says that like fatherhood lowers testosterone.
I was going to get there. Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Jump the gun.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and for some good reasons. But yeah, it does. I think that is like a trap that a lot of dads fall into. Is they just no longer feel like the man that they used to. And that's not a good feeling.
Moms especially. Like, just this is now, society is like, this is who you are now. Period.
Yeah.
And there's growing things. I think moms are emerging better than dads, strangely, because a lot of dads are not even in the parenting game yet. So the dads who like, okay, hear me out. So moms have always been in the parenting game. They invented the game. Okay. Now they're trying to like get out a little bit mentally of like, oh, it's not your entire identity. And you can be a badass biatch, and like work out hard and be like strong and like kick ass and like be in the corporate world. Like, awesome. Love it. I think since men are late to the parenting game, it's like basically the last like 20, 30 years, 40 years even, where we're like, this can be part of our identity. Oh, I'm a dad. Like I'm in gratitude practice, We're in there now. Now it's like, wait a minute. So are we allowed to get out too? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's the dads who have not quite got in, who have never changed a diaper, who aren't like involved in the child's like fucking emotional well-being or whatever. Right. So, let's not talk about those. Let's talk about the guys who are leaning in to being a dad. Sometimes those dads get lost in it because they're like, well, I don't want to be like my grandfather. And I'm so in it that I don't, and they become the modern martyr. And it's like, what the fuck, dude?
Well, I mean, and by the way, like I have been talking about, I think, the experience of dads, particularly because you and I are dads. When you look into actually the research, if you type into Google, how does becoming a parent change you? I'd say 85% of the writing is about moms, which I think is actually indicative of something interesting that's probably not great. One is that like there's all these like physiological and brain changes for moms that just happen to them, whether they like it or not. The physiological and brain changes for dads tends to be more behaviorally driven. Like
if they're leaning in.
Yeah, if you lean in, you change. If you don't have to. There's all those like, I mean, they like Elon Musk has like 14 kids. It doesn't seem like he's changed fundamentally as a human being. Like, you know what I mean? I do think this is incredibly profound for moms. And a lot of the obviously, of course, their bodies change in these ways that ours don't. I mean, one of the, like a mom's organs literally rearrange, like her kidneys change size, like when she's pregnant.
Oh, and have you ever seen like an MRI of where everything is?
Fucking far out, man. It's
pushed
shoved to the side.
That's why it's like the bladder situation. That's why pregnant women have to pee so much.
And actually, a lot of the writing that I found that was interesting is as women have been so much more encouraged and been so much more, have just like leapt so far forward professionally that there is now for a lot of moms this huge identity shift when they are confronted with this moment of like, oh man, I was like, my career was skyrocketing, but I also want to be with my kids a lot. So I think that identity collision happens for moms in massive ways. And the physical thing obviously is more massive for moms than for dads. But in some ways there's some overlap there. And then there's also some differences. So I was talking about dads because those are the parts that we have.
Yeah.
Not to discredit the profundity of this experience for mom.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
So let's talk about like physical changes a little bit, which we actually started to touch on. The brain changes are super, super interesting. Do you want me to give you a second?
Yeah, no, go for it.
the brain changes are super interesting. So
are you going to say the catchphrase or what?
Which catchphrase? Oh, round us out. Oh.
God fucking damn it.
I'm sorry, it's your catchphrase.
But it's kind of the show's.
Is it?
I've been waiting for you to round us out.
Before we dive in?
Yes. But now we've completely dove, we're underwater. But please use it somehow. It's like an OCD thing. I need it to be said.
All right. So here now, live via satellite, I'm going to round us out before we dive in.
No, we've already dove.
Now that we've dove in, I'll round us out.
Oh, thank you.
Do you feel better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is described as there's 2 times when your brain changes a ton after you're a little kid. So your brain changes the most when you're little, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's 2 massive shifts that it goes through after that. One of them is adolescence, and the other is becoming a parent. Now, some of these brain changes affect just moms. Some affect both mom and dads. One of the things that happens for moms that is super interesting is something called synaptic pruning.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and I don't mean this to be insulting. This is just what science says. So mothers lose gray matter during pregnancy.
Right.
But that is not, and so mommy brain is a real thing, and like there is brain fog. But ultimately, the same thing happens during adolescence, which is you lose gray matter. But nobody says you come out of adolescence dumber than you went in. What is actually happening is your brain has this like kit full of tools, and it's like, which one of these am I actually using? Like, I need to devote more power to this stuff, and I need to get rid of some other things. And it's interesting to me that is happening in a brain, and it is also very much happening in the way you organize and make choices about your life and your identity, because you have to drop some things because you're just picking up a real big new one. So that was fascinating to me. That tends to be the articles I found. This is really something that happens primarily to moms. Some of them said that, like, for dads who are really involved, some of this synaptic pruning happens as well. Some other things that happen that are really interesting. Our brains rewire themselves. And again, for dads, this is really dependent on how involved they are with their kids, particularly when their kids are little. Your brain's ability to process empathy, to have a theory of mind, which is that idea of like being able to like understand other people as whole human beings. There's an increased awareness of social connectedness. And actually, all of these things have proved to create better leaders in professional and community environments too. So that was cool for me to find out, because I think most of what we hear is like, oh, when you become a parent, it just saps you so much. You're not as good at anything else as you used to be. But I think there's some stuff definitely balancing the other end of those scales.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
We touched on this earlier, but the last one that I thought was really interesting is that men do have a lessening of testosterone. They also tend to have a lessening of cortisol, which I don't really buy because that's the stress hormone. I have not felt less stressed since having kids, but this is the science. And we have men tend, and again, this is like more true the more involved the father is, but men tend to have an increase in estradiol. I may be butchering that pronunciation, but it's a form of estrogen that's present in men. And all of this stuff is related to basically being a better parent, because testosterone makes you better at taking risks. It makes you better at building muscle. It also makes you more aggressive. The transition to these other hormones and to an ability to release like happy hormones when you bond with your kids. This is another way in which the brain changes in a big way. I mean, everybody knows that. Like, the way you'll hear it is, when I look my kids in the eyes, I feel this level of love that I didn't even know was possible. Like any parent, you've probably heard any parent say that. Like, that is actually happening in your brain. Your brain is rewiring itself to release this flood of happy feelings when you bond to your kid. So
that makes sense. Like evolutionarily, as a male, like mating versus parenting trade-off, like you want to have that high T to run around, find those ladies,
prove your worth.
Prove your worth. And then, once a baby arrives, like that lower T would make sense for, nurturing offspring if the dads are helping.
Yep.
Then, that's going to obviously help there. So that's,
yeah.
that makes sense.
So what was interesting to me is like the ways in which some of these brain changes mirror some of these identity changes, and how there is this push pull between like not wanting to lose all of those things that gave you your identity that gave you your identity as a young man, but also wanting to be very open to the changes that happen, and like celebrating of like some of those things. Like, yeah, I do really think I'm a better leader than I was in my 20s, because I just am more attuned to what's going on with the people around me rather than just so much up in my own shit.
Yeah. But also, like, would it be a bad thing if, like, because I found another sort of group of studies, just to round us like to a fucking cue ball here.
Perfect sphere.
Yeah, just perfection. Is that parents consistently reported higher overall life satisfaction. You know, also just claiming greater happiness, positive emotion, sense of meaning. So it's like, hypothetically, let's say we did lose a tiny bit of that chutzpah or whatever the fuck, you know, but then
that's a perfect usage of chutzpah, by the way. Really well, well done. Yeah.
You like the guttural CH there?
It's Yiddish, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe.
I could be wrong.
Chutzpah.
Chutzpah. I think that's my next pronunciation.
But so, you know, but on the whole, your life is way greater. Like, let's say you had 100% of a circle, right? Let's say you get 90% of that circle, but you get another circle.
You get another circle. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man. I don't know. And then also, just like to go back to your point, maybe you are even a better individual. It's something we chatted about on a way long ago episode when you were talking about how, maybe with turning 40, about how like, oh, well, what if I'm not as good a director because I won't stay up all night doing X, Y, and Z? Well, some would say that maybe, you know, having that higher level of empathy and or caring for another and or finding balance in your life, which you need to do to be a good parent, that makes you a better director or a better filmmaker, or allows you to tell story better. So, you know,
and in a way it's like, and this is where that balance again comes on and maybe it doesn't have to be an either or, where it's like, you don't have to let the parts of yourself go that were your identity, but you also don't have to like try to fight the change. Like, I wrote movies through my 20s and like mid 30s. I haven't written a movie in a while. I write kids books now, which take place from the first person perspective of a child main character. And they're the best thing I've ever written. So there's a continuity there, but also it's totally changed. Of course it's changed.
Right. And there's no universe in which if the 20-year-old you was writing things where the protagonist was like an 11-year-old girl, I'd, you know, report you to Child Protective Services.
Yeah, like, right? Yeah. You need to call somebody.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, that's right. There's a good, I think it's Tom Segura, the comic who has kids, and he has a bit about somebody saying like, oh, being a parent changes you. And I think this is a particularly dad perspective where he's like, well, I wouldn't say that. I would say it should. Like, it doesn't change everybody. I think the people who fight that change are the people who really struggle the most. And I think part of that is that acceptance of, and I've quoted this before because it's one of my favorite quotes, but I was thinking about when you were talking about like overall life satisfaction. In life, take what you want and pay for it. You will pay for having kids. There are things that you don't have anymore. But if you can accept that like thinking of it that way allows me to accept those changes, and even the parts of the change that I don't particularly like, and even the parts of the change that make me miss some things that I used to get to do more. But then you look at the overall picture and it's like, oh, well, shit, I wouldn't trade this for nothing.
Right. And that's why it's important to do gratitude practices.
Yeah. There you go.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And also,
that's a great point. I should
step back and I just hate that fucking word, but like,
I know you do.
But just
2 words.
Think about, we signed up for this.
Yeah.
Unless you didn't and they poked a hole in the condom. But like in our case, in most people's cases, this was a choice. And maybe you got the puppy and didn't realize how much work it'd be to have a dog. But we all signed up for this. And I think that there's a very easy way to go through life and not realize that like this is actually good. And like I don't know. I don't want to be like fear mongering but like one of the quotes that always motivated me as a kid, it doesn't really motivate me anymore. I haven't thought about it in like 10 or 20 years, is like, one man's version of hell is on the day you die, you meet the man you could have become. So I'm always like thinking like, I don't want to like miss anything. It's the same thing on the planning episode. It's like, I just don't want to like look back and be one of those fucking people and the kids are off for college and you're like, oh, I should have appreciated it more. Like I was such a fucking asshole, like, and that doing the fucking gratitude work, is important. But then also I think the other thing that like, we don't talk about a lot, but it's basically the reason we're doing this whole podcast is like, you can change your experience in parenting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're not intentional about it, like, I don't know. I have a couple friends, who've been like, yeah, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? Well, one, I'm like, have you listened to the podcast? Like we have an episode about it. Yeah. But like, I think that a lot of people struggle with kids going to sleep, struggle with food, struggle with their child's frustrations, struggle with their own anger. It's like, not to say you just got to meditate about it, brah, but like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of times we think that like, this is just how it is. And like, it's something you need to suffer through. I just strongly believe that life in general is like, wow, this sucks. What can we do? And maybe there's something you can do to lessen that burden. And maybe there isn't, but at least knowing that you maybe lessened the burden by like 5%, made it a little bit easier on yourself, found a little hack. And then, the rest is I chatted with people who know, and you know what? It's just going to suck for another 18 months. Then they'll dev out of it. Yeah. And I'll be good. Yeah. And okay, there's solace in that and being intentional about, otherwise it feels like you're helpless.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great point. And the thing I was thinking as you were talking about this is like the point you were making is like, you can change yourself and your perspective on things. And that's kind of what we're getting at, is like allowing yourself that change. 'Cause like the 26-year-old version of me would not have been able to sit there while my 2-year-old takes the 3 required minutes to put on her pants because she wants to do it herself. That would have driven my ass crazy. And so you have to become a person that doesn't hate that, because that's what's happening. And I think allowing yourself to change in those ways is huge.
Well, and also just having the belief that it can change is the first thing that like, I feel like most people think that this is how it is. Yeah. My child is annoying. Yeah. And they are annoying. Let's be clear. They are annoying.
Frequently.
But it doesn't mean that we have to have the same reactions all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I think I fall into that trap sometimes of like, well, if I could just change these external factors, then everything would be okay. But really it's like, nah, what you change first is work on the internal experience. 'Cause that's where you got that's where you got all the control. The last thing I'll say about this, and then we should wrap up. I remember, this was actually before we had kids, but I remember being in a couples therapy session with my wife shortly after we got married. We saw this great couples therapist for a little while, and it really helped us. And I remember there was we said it nicer than this, but this was the kind of what the conversation amounted to, was I was looking at my wife saying, basically, like, you have changed so much since I first met you. I almost feel betrayed, like by how much you've changed. Like, kind of like, where do you get off? Like being so pre-kids. Different. Yeah. Pre-kids. This was even pre-kids, but man, if I thought that then, like once kids showed up, like get ready. But I was kind of hurt. I was like, you feel so different from the person that I met, that like, where do you get off changing so much? And she was basically looking back at me like, when are you going to change? Like, we're not fucking 24 anymore. Like, when do you grow up? And I think that is like, I have seen that in couples when one of them is really ready to change with this massive thing that wants so badly to to change you and that is asking so much change of you, and the other really doesn't. And that's a tough spot for a couple. Because I think ideally what you're hoping for is you change together.
Totally. 100%. And that's the thing is like, I think even stepping back one layer is like talking about why change is good. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that gets like left, and then someone's already there. Maybe your wife was already there and was like, hey, so when are you going to get with the fucking program?
Yeah.
It's like, I wasn't aware of the program, that there was a program. Because I think a lot of times the more responsible party, AKA the woman, typically is
not always.
Not always. I know.
Just in our marriages.
Yeah. But I'd say 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10, it's the other way around. But I'd say most of the time it's the women. They grow up a little quicker. They expect it of us. And I think that, if you're a woman listening and your husband's not with the fucking program yet, like, it's explaining that there is a program. That is this something that we both value? Do we both value growth? Is this something we want to do? Because I went through the same thing with my wife, like where she kind of quote grew up, a little bit before me. I mean, we've said it before. Women develop, little girls develop like a little bit earlier than young boys. Yeah. But it happens even maybe into an adulthood where, they kind of grow out of their college stuff.
Yeah. And
earlier than we do.
And truthfully, that argument / discussion we had in that therapy session was before we had kids. But I think what was going on is she was getting ready to have kids. And I didn't make a lot of those changes until they showed up. Like, I kind of had to be, what's the great David Foster Wallace quote? Anything I've ever let go of has claw marks on it. Like, I had to be shoved into it. But it's gotten easier for me. And I think your point is so well made that, like, look at what you're getting out of it. Don't just look at what you're losing. Look at what you're getting.
Totally.
Have that gratitude practice, Maxie boy. Yeah.
Just be grateful.
Just be grateful.
No, but it's true.
All right. Well, we've solved it.
We did it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good work. So, don't have to worry about that ever again.
This episode of Milkless is brought to you by Violet Archer in the case of the Purple Martin. Thank you. Bye.